Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the highly anticipated, long-awaited Transformers Studio Series Revenge of the Fallen Deluxe Class Jolt. And I actually cannot believe that I'm really saying those words, as this guy for the longest time seemed as if he never really existed. Hasbro have basically not acknowledged any of the upcoming movie Transformers Studio Series figures, which is really unfortunate, as of course the line did originally kickstart with the live-action movies, but it does appear as if though they're taking a slight backbench when in comparison to the publicity that the 86 subline's been getting. But nevertheless, taking a look here at Jolt today, this is actually a really well done figure, and quite surprisingly too, as when I first saw some of the in-hand images of this guy, I was a little skeptical, especially in regards to that head sculpt. However, when comparing it to some of the CGI stills from the movie, it is once again pretty darn accurate, as of course these figures are based on the CGI models from Paramount and ILM. But you can see that as far as the detail is concerned, the face sculpt is exactly what we've all come to know, love, and in some regards hate with the Michael Bay designs. It definitely looks really unusual and is a major departure when in comparison to what we've all become familiar with, that being the toy head design. This does not possess the three crest design that we've seen on the Revenge of the Fallen and Dark of the Moon Deluxe, but instead goes for a much more streamlined, almost protoform-esque type of design, which I will be honest and say doesn't look half bad, and for the most part, as mentioned, is pretty accurate. It is just missing some blue highlights on the side of the cheeks, but you can see some fantastic looking details going on there. It really does look awesome. We've got some metallic blue highlights here at the top, as well as silver for the mouthpiece, and they have in fact actually painted the eyes blue, which in person look a lot better than they are actually showing here on camera. I do like the use of the front section of the vehicle mode actually becoming these spike sections that would stick off to the side of Jolt. I actually think these two have turned out really well, and as we take a look here towards the torso, this is just loaded and decked out with so much mechanical detail, and the figure has not only been sculpted really well, but has also been painted super nicely. You can see that the metallic silver really does help to break apart the blue, and I just think it's an awesome looking design. Even here for the arms, you can see all of the intricate mechanical detail that we've got going on here for the bicep, as well as here on the top of the forearms. An amazing amount of metallic silver used there, and the claws look so awesome. We'll touch base more with these later on when we take a look at accessories, but these really have turned out so well and look very accurate to the film. I also like how the shoulders do break apart for transformation. That's something they didn't have to do, but I'm super glad they did. And as we turn our attention here down to the lower section, you can see some fantastic detail for this piece. I really like how they've actually used a mixture of clear plastic on this guy. It's just the extra mile that they seem to be taking with this particular release, and it's something that they just didn't have to do. So we've got some clear plastic going on here, which reveals some internal detailing, and the same can also be said here for the thighs. This too is also a piece of clear plastic, and you may be able to tell that there is in fact some sculpted in detailing actually underneath this section. We've got a really nice gunmetal used here for the thighs. I do like how they have tried to replicate the wheels here for the knees. Of course, it would be near enough impossible to do that on this figure, as the Michael Bay designs were very complex, but I think it works rather well. You can see here from a side perspective, a very complex design. I love all of these different spikes that we've got sticking off to the sides. And then as we take a look here towards the feet, a very abstract look, but certainly not bad by any stretch of the imagination. And then as we spin here to the side, once again, when I first saw some of the in-hand images of this figure, I was not all that impressed, but to be fair, this is actually really accurate to the film when he does actually electrify the afterburners to Optimus Prime from Jetfire. All of these pieces do begin to flare open, and he definitely does have these wings here, as well as the wings on the thighs, and definitely these crest sections or these spikes here at the top. So as far as the design is concerned, I think it's pretty much spot on. Of course, not 100% to the movie, but definitely close enough, and this is no doubt the best Jolt we've ever gotten from Hasbro and Takara Tomy. Now, in regards to articulation, the head here is on a ball joint, so it can look up and down, as well as tilt side to side ever so slightly, as well as, of course, rotate left to right, but it is slightly hindered due to the nature of the design. We do get a great range of motion here for the arms, so these are in ball joints, can hinge out to the side, hinge down, rotate the full 360, and we also do get a slight butterfly joint due to transformation, but it is slightly restricted there. We do get a full rotation here at the bicep, as well as a well past 90-degree range of motion here, only on a single pin joint. Due to transformation, the claws can hinge forwards and backwards. I was very surprised to see that due to transformation, Jolt does have a fake ab crunch, which really does help to actually utilize his waist joint. So I'm not entirely sure whether or not that was intentional, but that is awesome, and that definitely also does recreate his look from the film, as of course, when he's joining Jetfire and Prime together, this is sort of the position that we see him in, so that's really nice. But you get a full rotation here at the waist, the legs can kick forwards that far, as well as back to that far, as well as here out to the sides. You can sort of move these components out of the way as they are on ball joints, but the wheels are underneath and are slightly thick, so may actually bump into this section. We do get a knee joint here, as well as a hinge joint here at the foot, and surprisingly a swivel joint here just below where the knee is. Unfortunately, no form of ankle rocker joint, which I would have loved, as the figure does have a very weird foot design, meaning that he doesn't always stand flush on the ground, but I haven't really found to have any balance issues with this guy at all. So overall, as far as the robot mode is concerned, I'm thoroughly impressed, especially in regards to detail and how close they were actually able to get this guy to his on-screen movie counterpart.
Jolt, electrified.
transfer those afterburners. In order to actually get Jolt to transfer Jetfire's parts onto Optimus Prime, Hasbro and Takara have included a pair of electric whips. Now, to be honest with you, these are on the slight weaker side in my opinion, as they've just been cast out of a solid piece of grey plastic and don't really have any type of flex to them, and honestly I would have loved to have gotten a metallic blue highlight actually applied to some of these spikes. They are of course a nice inclusion, as they are really the only weapons that we see the characters sport with in the movie, but once again I wish that we could have gotten some variety of paint or maybe even a bendy wire. But as far as integration is concerned, it's actually a lot different than I expected. So you do in fact actually have to remove one of the claws from either of the hands. So just detach this section and then we can peg that here onto, I guess, the waist belt. So snap that piece onto there. We can then take one of the electro whips and just put that there into the hand, and that is how the whips do in fact actually store on the figure. Definitely not a bad form of weapon integration at all, but in the film I'm pretty certain they came directly out of the centre, and I'm pretty certain they could have designed this in a way so that the peg could have been here, so that you could have merely just slot that there in between the three claws. But still really awesome, just to showcase how that looks on both of the hands. So just pop this section here off. They are very small, so I personally would recommend to actually tap them onto these skirt panels, as you may actually lose them, and of course it would compromise the look of the figure quite a lot. But you can see there we've got Jolt with his electro whips fully deployed, ready to join Optimus Prime and Jetfire together. And the length also is very, very movie accurate, but you can see due to their weight, they do have a tendency to weigh down the ball joints, which is a little unfortunate, but if you do apply some floor polish, that shouldn't be an issue at all. Here for the 2009 Jolt comparison, we've got the old deluxe version on the left and the newer version on the right, and you can see not only the drastic difference in regards to the accuracy of the movie, but also the drastic difference in regards to the scale. The new version is drastically smaller, but that's just something that we've all come to expect now with these modern day deluxe figures. But you can see in what I was mentioning earlier on in regards to the head sculpt, this is what we had grown accustomed to with movie Jolt, and it will no doubt take a bit of time for some collectors to get used to this more movie accurate sculpt. But to be honest with you, I actually do prefer the design of this. I think this is really mechanical looking, certainly fits into the aesthetic that we've seen from the Michael Bay movies, whereas this one here, I'm not entirely sure as to whether or not it would look great on screen. But you can see in regards to the design, this one is just loaded with more detail. You can see some of the similarities in regards to where the parts end up. So we've still got the front section of the Chevy here at the top, but the backpack is definitely a little bigger here on the Studio Series version, but that once again is to match his appearance from the film. And I also believe the foot and leg design is a lot better here for the SS version, as so are the weapons, and definitely where that claw design is concerned. And here for some movie size comparisons, we've got Jolt compared next to ROTF Bumblebee, as well as Ratchet, and of course the Voyager class Optimus Prime. And I actually think the scale between these guys works really well, especially between B and Jolt, and you'll see that more when we take a look at vehicle mode. These guys are pretty much exactly the same as far as a head-to-head is concerned, and if you were to count the top of these spike pieces, Jolt would be a bigger deluxe. Here for a comparison with Ratchet, you can see, considering Ratchet is just a bigger deluxe, Jolt does look a little smaller, but this too I don't think works too bad, considering that Ratchet is a Hummer, and of course Jolt is, I believe, a Chevy Volt. And here for a comparison with Optimus Prime, you can see there the scale, I at least think, works pretty well. So turning to transformation here for Jolt, surprisingly it is definitely on the more complex side, and there are some QC issues that I have here, at least on my copy, in regards to some of the tabs. The plastic used is very thin on some of the pieces, and I have no doubt that they're going to wear and break, probably even after this transformation, which is really unfortunate. But to begin with, I like to come to this back section and just detach it. It is held in via these two tabs, and of course the slots here at the top. We can then just hinge these pieces up so that we can rotate these sections on the shoulder via the pin joint, and then you're essentially going to want to get that tiny tab overlapping here on this piece. So bend this back until it does snap there into place. We can then come here to this side and do the exact same. So you can see already, unfortunately, this section has stressed, and I believe a part of it's actually snapped off, but just snap that there over the top. We can then turn our attention to this entire top piece, which has been completely cast out of transparent plastic. Now, usually I would hate this, but the plastic is actually very thick for this piece, and I really don't have any issues with this, especially in regards to how the transformation works. So take these two blue sections and lift these pieces off, as these two also do tab into these slots. So just bring this entire region down. We can then come to this piece, extend this like so, and do the same here. Extend that, bring the two halves together, and just snap this here into place, so that we've essentially got the entire front section and the top section of the vehicle fully transformed. We can then come to these pieces. You're going to want to detach the wheels, fold these out, and I love how they're actually using pins on these Studio Series Michael Bay movie figure deluxes. And then we can take this ab crunch. You're going to want to bring this entire section here forwards, and then bring this section up, as we're going to focus here at the back. So you're going to want to bring this up and over. We're then going to want to bring this around and then fold the claw in. So we're left with something like this, and then just snap that there into place. Repeat the same process, so bring this up. We can then bring this up and then fold the claw in. And these are also some tabs that I have no doubt will break over time. You can already see how they're stressing, and it does actually take quite a considerable amount of force to separate these going back into robot mode. But just attach these here until they do click really securely into place, probably too tight in my opinion. We can then come to this section. You're going to want to collapse that in and collapse that section in. We're then going to want to collapse the knee joint all the way down and shift that up. We can then rotate this piece, and you can see we've got a tiny tab that you're going to want to slot into this piece. So snap that in there. And then we also have got a tab here that's going to go into this slot. So also snap that into place, and that will essentially give you the basis for how this should all align up. So spin here to this side and repeat the exact same process, just snapping all of this in. These two halves will also snap together, and then just manipulate this until that pegs into place. We can then fold out the wheels on both sides, and you can see some of those tabs that you're just going to want to give that little extra push. And then it is just a matter of bringing this entire component over the top, snapping all of these pieces in. And there you've got the Transformers Revenge of the Fallen Studio Series Deluxe Class Jolt, fully transformed up into his really awesome Chevy Volt alternate mode. And it's actually a really nice looking vehicle mode. What else can I say? It looks near enough spot on to the vehicle used in the movie, and surprisingly, Jolt was only in the film for roughly 10 seconds, which is such a shame considering the character on paper is really interesting and his actual design is also really intriguing. But taking a closer look here at the Chevy Volt alt mode, you can see it looks very, very clean. I love the paint that we've got going on here at the front. So much silver. They really did go all out on this particular release, probably because they knew how much the fan demand was actually for this guy. You can see the side view mirrors picked out in a nice silver, the rims all picked out in silver as well, which look great. Flipping here to the underside, not much components actually on show besides the claws. You can see everything does tab together and stay together really, really nicely. Even here at the back, we've got the tail lights picked out in a red, some nice glossy black paint, as well as a silver Chevy logo. And as we take a look here towards the top, they've used a very smoky, dark, transparent plastic, which actually hides a lot of the interior, which of course would expose robot mode pieces otherwise, which I think is also really well done. You can see here from a side, it looks great. Here from the bird's eye perspective, it looks great. From the front, it looks really awesome, and it does actually roll impeccably well. So unlike that Dark of the Moon side swipe, which would constantly get stuck, this guy has no issues at all in rolling along the ground. Now, in regards to weapon implementation, you can just take these whips and tap them here onto the side. Certainly not the best form of weapon storage, but they probably were way too long. You can see how they definitely stick out from either the top or the end of the vehicle if they were to have designed these to stay underneath, and there's literally no room for them to actually place. So they do just simply tap here onto the sides, which once again, I don't think looks the worst. I've seen worse weapon storage on a Studio Series figure, but you can see it definitely isn't a robot in disguise anymore. Jolt comparison time. We've got the old 2009 version here on the right and the newer version on the left, and not only are they using a much lighter shade of blue, which I actually believe is slightly more movie accurate, despite me ever so slightly actually preferring this almost metallic flake that we've got going on here with the plastic of the original version. You can just see that they are really solid looking vehicles. Now, of course, the scale is something that you're going to notice straight off the bat, but it's definitely not as noticeable as what we saw in robot mode, which is cool to see. But a really nice evolution, and you can definitely see how they've made progress over the last decade in really getting this guy as accurate as possible. In regards to a more contemporary Studio Series comparison, here we've got him with the ROTF Bumblebee, and as mentioned in the bot mode comparison, I think they are really, really close in regards to scale. This is pretty much exactly what we saw in the film, so I personally am really, really happy with how this guy's turned out. And so, some final thoughts here for the Transformers Studio Series ROTF Deluxe Class Jolt. Overall, I think this is a really solid entry into the line. It certainly has lived up to the hype and expectations that's been building around this guy ever since listings did begin to appear, I believe late last year. It may have in fact been towards the beginning of 2021. I'm really chuffed with this guy. I think the robot mode is very accurate to the film, especially when comparing it to some of those CGI caps. The robot mode head, of course, is going to be a shock to many upon the first time seeing it, but it is accurate to the film, and considering Hasbro and Takara are going for spot-on movie accuracy with these figures, they're not going to utilize the toy head sculpt that we got with the original ROTF and Dark of the Moon toy. I also think that the articulation for this figure is really well done. I was very surprised to see an almost faux ab crunch as well as waist articulation, and despite it appearing initially as being a rather kibbly figure, that once again too is for the most part accurate to the film. I'm not a massive fan of the electric whips. I wish they could have done something perhaps a little more out of the box with them. Maybe if they could have had bendy wire in them, or even if they had just cast them out of transparent blue plastic or just added some blue paint. I think that probably would have upped their visual appeal. As it stands, they look really bland and boring to me, and I'll more than likely just be displaying this guy in his generic robot mode without adding the whips on display. The transformation is quite complex for a deluxe of this scale, and you can see that some of the plastic isn't the toughest, meaning that some of the tabs have already begun to stress and will no doubt break sooner or later. As you saw, one of my tabs was actually half chipped and incredibly stressed out, so that is a shame. But the actual Chevy Volt alt mode is really well done, much like all of these Studio Series figures which actually do get the license. It looks very accurate to the real life vehicle. I love the paint, I love the detail, and I love the overall scale as well as proportions. So this guy certainly is a solid Studio Series Deluxe, especially considering that we've had a massive lack of live action movie figures in this past year. It's great to actually get a proper Michael Bay Studio Series Deluxe figure, and I'm really looking forward to be able to show you guys the upcoming Studio Series Revenge of the Fallen Sideswipe in potentially the next review. I would love to know down in the comment section below what you guys think of this figure. Is it one that you'll be adding to your collection? Are you happy with this? Does it live up to your expectations, or does it fall slightly short? And as always, be sure to let me know on what you thought of the review. I thank you all for watching, and until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.